sword on my back. You don't know how to act. Maybe you should relax. Maybe you should relapse. Just kidding. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop.
How we doing, everybody? Oh yeah, getting started. How we doing, everybody? Oh yeah, getting started. There we go.
Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop, 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 stop,
All right. How we doing, everybody? It's your boy, it's Joey. Big shout out to my man, Master Maestro, yesterday with the huge raid yesterday, and good looking out, my main man Muffin for that. That was amazing yesterday. You guys dropped it big time on me. You guys made my head explode. How's everybody doing out there today? Hope everybody's having a great day. Yeah, yesterday was awesome, guys. Yesterday was great. I really appreciate all the awesomeness that went on during the stream, and then some of the conversation that took place after the stream in the Discord channel. So, no, some awesome things, guys. I mean, you guys are really making this really happen. I made some updates today. I kind of finally pushed myself, and I kind of just stayed up all day, so I'm kind of beat up. Because normally I would get some sleep during the day because my body's so used to the overnight, but whatever. I'm not gonna complain about that. But yeah, so I made some big updates to the Discord. Finally, kind of gave it it's polished. Still not done yet, but I kind of gave it a good polish today. Let me finish some of this coffee. Only a little bit left. To the Discord, I also did a I'll throw it in the chat because I know Lady Webb yesterday she was trying to pull up the Discord and trying to promote it too, so she was giving in the old exclamation point Discord command. So I put that up in Nightbot. I also tamed Nightbot just a little bit more too, so he'll be a little bit more lenient with what it was allowing and stuff like that. Because I know you guys were kind of pumped up yesterday and using some caps, and you know, I had when I had initially built Nightbot, I built it to all like the strictest standards. I didn't realize how strict it was going to be, so I apologize for that. I hope nobody was offended yesterday. So I kind of geared it back a little bit, a lot of it actually, in comparison to what it was. Hopefully you guys can understand. I just didn't want I only, I obviously I don't have monitors and stuff like that in here. So I had to make sure I had a way to make sure things weren't getting inappropriate in the chat and stuff like that. So that's the only reason why. So I apologize if it offended for you, but I hope you understand at the same time. So without that being said, I did gear it back. I did gear it back a little bit on what it will allow and stuff like that. So yeah. Again, I stayed up most of the day, and oh, don't you start Twitch? Or don't you do it? Don't you do it, buddy? Did you do it? No? Yeah? You gonna let me back? There we go. No, it's funny. I didn't get my stream notifications. Oh, okay. So I got that one. Oh, okay. They came through. But did they notify me? No, they did not. They did not notify me. They went through to the channel, but I did not get notified. It speaks at that to real quick, yeah. I tell you, the server, the Discord stuff's been really fun to play around with, guys. I tell you, I've been enjoying. That's exactly the same. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't make myself part of it. That's thinking why. There we go. All right, there we go. Now I should be able to get notified. Notified when that goes off. So, all right, yeah. I just had to just trying to figure out if I broke my notification thing that I built today, which I didn't. It's working. All right, it's working. Everything is good. Everything is possible. All right. So today, what we're going to do is pretty much like we do every day. All right, we're gonna do a chapter review. We're gonna dive into chapter 19 and chapter 20, which are the last two chapters of part 6 here of the OSPF that we've been reviewing as of late. So we're going to go beat ourselves up with some chapter review. All right. And then we'll dive into chapter 21. Chapter 21, it's not the biggest chapter. It's still a pretty long one, but it's not the biggest. We're going to have to make a new topology in CML because we're going to be looking at some other stuff today over there. And then, yeah, we're going to go from there, guys. So let's get ready to rumble. I guess. Got this down. I'll go to my screen. There we go. All right. Let's get into the test prep. All right. Do the full gambit of the test. We'll unselect everything. Chapter 19, chapter 20. Let's get beat up. And let's dive right into it, guys. Okay? No holds barred. Okay. OSPF utilizes blank to organize topology information. link state advertisements. Okay. OSPF enables routers to send hello packets using which multicast address. So that's the 224.0.0.5. Okay. Two internal routers connected to the same local area net-based subnet. Two internal OSPF routers connect to the same LAN-based subnet with router 1 and router 2 acting, with router 1 acting as the DR and R2 acting as the BDR. What LSAs will R1 create and flood to R2? Select one answer. All right, so what do we need? So remember, we have R1 as router and R2's network. Select one answer. Let's go at L2. All right, so that was the network. Okay. Which LSAs describe topologies inside OSPF inside of an OSPF area? All right. Which LSA types describe the topology inside of an OSPF area? Okay. So what do we got? Go with L2 and L1 and L2. All right. Which OSPF message type is used to actually send the LSA between neighbors? So that's the link state updates, the LSUs. Okay, because that's what's actually that's the packet is the link state update is the packet. Okay. Which answers correctly describe the function and use of OSPF database description messages? Which answer correctly describes the function and use of OSPF database description messages? To exchange list of identifying known LSAs, to exchange detailed contents of LSAs, to exchange list identifying known LSAs, used after forming a neighbor relationship, and after a serial link, and after a link state update message, used after forming a neighbor relationship, but before any link state update message. To exchange counts of known LSAs, to exchange list of identifying known LSAs, exchange detailed contents of known LSAs. Function abuse. Let's go with to exchange a list of identifying known LSAs, and then use after forming a neighbor relationship, but before any link state update messages. Which type of route will a router add to its IP table if the router does not use a routing protocol? So we got to select 3. So we have static, floating, and connected. Review the topology diagram. All Ethernet links have been manually assigned in OSPF cluster 4. Each end of the serial link that connects R3 and R4 have been set to OSPF cluster 15. The entire private network has been configured as a single OSPF area. What will be the cost of R1's routing table to The network 10.45.0.0.24. I break out my penny pen here. Do some mathy math. Alright, so what do we got? 10.45.4. So here's the network we want to get to. We have a cost of 4 and a cost of 15. So we go from here out this outgoing interface. So we have one cost of 4. All right, here. All right, out this outgoing interface. So now we have a cost of 15. And then here, and then we have another cost of 4. Okay. So 4 plus 15, that gives us 19 plus 4, all right, equaling 23, all right. Do we have a 23? We do have a 23. All right. Let's go with 23. All right. Go with 23. All right, we're doing pretty good. All right. Review the topology. All subnets exist in an OSPF area 0. Which command if issued on R3 should show all the LSAs known by R3. Review the topology. All subnets exist in area 0. Which command is issued on R3 which issued would on R3 would show you all known LSAs. So if we did the show IP database, OSPF database, yep, that was it. Okay. A router's configuration has been set. A router's configuration uses the default reference bandwidth setting, and also uses OSPF cost defaults as calculated by the router. Analyze the exhibit output in interface for serial 1. Which answer lists the approximate interface bandwidth on that interface? So let's take a look, guys. So the link is up. Cost 64. My router's configuration uses the default reference bandwidth setting, and also uses OSPF cost defaults as calculated by the router. Analyze the exhibit on serial interface 1, which answer lists the appropriate interface bandwidth of that interface. So we were wrong. All right. I couldn't even explain that one. All right. First note that the output of the show IP OSPF command lists the cost of 64. Yeah, I saw that. The default setting of auto cost reference bandwidth OSPF configuration command is 100, meaning 100 megabytes per second. Finally, iOS uses the default OSPF cost calculation of the reference and bandwidth interface bandwidth. Next, the formula needs to be consistent. It needs to be consistent units So when using bits per second, 100, pretty much 1 million, 100 million megabytes per second, bits per second. Interface equals 64 bits. Oh, okay. So they did some kind of conversion. Let's do that on a calculator real quick so we can just take a look at how they did that. So we take one's a million, 100, divided by 64. Let's see what they did. I see what they did. Yes. How'd you get that from that? Alright. I see what they did. Alright. Alright. Refer to the exhibit. After some troubleshooting, you notice that host on the 192.168.2.0 network can't connect to any network resource, but are able to ping their gateway according to the configuration. What is true? So what do we got? Interface loopback 0 with an IP address. Internet. Got another one. Router, OSPF process. Process doesn't matter really. Router ID. We gave the router ID is the same thing as the IP loopback address. That's fine. Some troubleshooting. You notice that the host not cannot. The list of the network command. The list of the network command does not match. Not match 501. The route ID command should not use numbers equal to the interface IP address. The configuration should only list one network command with area 0. I did put two areas, two networks in area 0. No, we did that. All right, let's go with. Oh, that's right. Route ID. All right, let's go with number 2. All right. The list of network commands does not match the interface file 0, which is true. Which is true. The route ID command can list any. Yes, I get that. Yeah. So it was just the fact that it was missing the 501 network, which was 192.168.2.0. It was just missing that from the OSPF command. Okay, I'll take that. All right, refer to the diagram in exhibit. What is the router? What is the router that is shown on R2 to reach the internet? Refer to the diagram in the exhibit. What is the route to What is the route that is shown on R1 to reach the internet? Okay. What do we got? R3 off per gigabit 0-1. That's the 192.0.2.100. And hmm. Let's go with A. No, B. Route must exist on the initial configuration router to reach the destination. In this case, R3 has been configured with the default settings. Alright. It's fine. And I am going to need more coffee. I can already fill up. Instant coffee to save the day. I have to stand up for this stream today, guys. I'm tired. Better get for not sleeping. That's what I get for not sleeping at all the last 2 days. So cold. Alright, let's stand up. We need to focus. Yeah. Korari kick. Ah, handy schmandy, handy dandy keyboard thingy madoober. Right. And because I guess we'll just do it like this. We'll do it like this, and we'll do it like that, and we'll do it like this. I'm losing followers. No. All right. Woo. Look at that. Last bit of coffee. All right. Clear up. whiteboard here. All right. Let's get to it, guys. All right. Monitor. All right. If you configure a router, with a router ID, with the router ID command. What is the next option a Cisco router uses to choose an OSPF router ID? If not configured with the router, so if not configured with the router ID command, what is the next option a Cisco router uses to choose its OSPF router ID? Uses the IP address on the active loopback interface with the highest IP address. Uses the IP address of a active non-loopback address. Uses the IP address of the active loopback interface with the highest interface ID number. Uses the IP address of the active non-loopback interface with the highest IP. So it'd be the, let me read these two again. Uses the IP address of the active loopback interface with the highest IP address. Go with this one. Okay. All right. Refer to the exhibit. Which options are true about OSPF configuration? Refer to the exhibit. Which options are true about the OSPF configuration? So what do we got? So we have up area 0 attached via network statement. Designated router. Backup router. Jason with the neighbors, yeah. That's Ethernet line. It's using some crazy dotted decimal area on area for the next area. Attached via, so it's on fast Ethernet 0-1. It's using the interface IP OSPF interface command on that one. All right, let's take a look now on gigabit fast Ethernet. On R2's fast Ethernet, it is configured using OSPF interface command. Yep, that's kind of right. So we got to select that one. Using the OSPF network. Nope. R2 is configured in two OSPF areas, 0 and 2. R2 is configured in a single OSPF. Let's take a look at that. So it is still, man, that's tough. Because that is still 0, right? This is 0, 0, 0. You might be wrong. Alright, so we were wrong about that one. So even though it's in a like a dotted decimal type notation, it's considered into a different area. Okay, I get where I went wrong on that one. In the absence of a direct cost being configured for an OSPF interface and using the default reference OSPF bandwidth, what is the OSPF cost for a fast Ethernet interface operating at 100 megabytes per second? So that's a cost of 1. All right. Which of the following rules does an OSPF router follow with regards to the selection of a router ID when the OSPF process starts. Okay. Which of the following rules does the OSPF router follow with the regards to the selection of the router ID when the OSPF process starts? In the absence of a specific router ID, so we got selected 3 answers. In the absence of a specific router ID, the highest IP on the loopback is used. The default router ID is the loopback address. Nope. If no configured IPv4 address exists, and there is no configured router ID, the router creates and uses a randomly generated ID and uses that until either an IPv4 address is configured or until a router ID is configured. The highest IP on a non-loopback interface is the last choice for use of a, yes, we got that one. Administrative configured router ID is used as the first choice, and we have that one. All right, did pretty good on that. We got a couple wrong, which I understand, and I understood. How's this? I understood where I went wrong on the ones I got wrong too, which is good. What is not good is not understanding where you went wrong on the ones you got wrong. So my thing is if I can understand why I got a question wrong, that I'm understanding the concepts then of why I got it wrong. So that's it. All right. We're going to need some routers, some rusty routers. Not rusty routers, some rusty routers. We're getting rowdy in here. Let's get some rusty routers. Right. This is going to be the topology we'll be using today, guys. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. I am getting so hot, I want to take your clothes off. Whoa. Alright, so that's going to be the topology we'll be using today. I don't believe I need any more interfaces. So, let's over here, we're just going to give it some things, some naming names. It's funny because at one point I remember where every single button was on this thing, but now I don't. That's R1. And R2. And then R3. And then R4. That's good. Let's get fired up. I am so tired today. All right, chapter 1. Now I know we kind of touched on this, but we need to continue to crush these chapters. It's so important for our knowledge. All right, chapter 1. OSPF networks, network types in networks. This chapter covers the following exam topics: IP connectivity, configure and verifying, single area, OSPF version 2, neighbor adjacencies, point-to-point, broadcast, designated router, backup designated router, router ID. All right. Chapter 20, implementing OSPF, discussed the required and most common options OSPF configuration settings, all right, along with the many verifications command to show how OSPF works with those settings. This chapter continues with more OSPF implementation, both to round out the discussion of OSPF and to focus on even more even more on the specific CCNA 200-301 exam topic. The first two major sections of this chapter focuses on OSPF network types, specifically types point to point in broadcast. Okay, the CCNA 200-301 topics mention those by name. All right. Chapter 20 showed how OSPF operates on an Ethernet interface when using their default network type, the broadcast. The first section of this chapter discusses the meaning of OSPF network types, default settings, and how to configure and use those settings, and how OSPF works differently with those different settings. The second major section of this chapter focuses on OSPF and neighbor adjacencies, and mentions in yet another of the OSPF exam topics. OSPF routers cannot exchange LSAs with another router unless they have been first neighbors. Okay, so I believe there was one time where we were trying to make that happen, and we just couldn't make it happen, and that's why. Okay. The second section discusses the various OSPF features that can prevent OSPF routers from becoming neighbors, and how they can go about discovering if those bad conditions exist, and if they have, and if they don't have access to the runner configuration. Okay. Let's take a stretch. Ooh. A deep breath now. Focus. Alright. Let's do this. Do I know this already? Quiz. I don't know how well we're going to do on this, but we're going to do it anyhow. Woo. I'll be up. Alright. Alright. Router 1 and 2, and router 2 with IDs 11111 and 2.2.2.2 connect over an Ethernet WAN link. If using all default OSPF settings, if the WAN link initializes both routers at the same time, which of the following answers will be true? Choose two answers. Router 1 will become DR. Router R1 will be dynamically discovered to exist on R2. R2 will be neither DR, BDR. R1's show IP interface neighbor command will list R2 with status of full endure. Let's go with B and D. Let's go with a B and a D. Yeah. All right. Router 1 and router 2 with the right ID. Same exact question. Yeah, it's the same exact question. All right, choose two answers. R1 will become DR. R1 will dynamically discover the existence of R2. R2 will be neither. Huh. Oh, okay. Wait. It's a different question. All right. R1 and R2 router IDs. Yep. Connect over a WAN link. Except given given R1 an interface priority of 11 and changing both routers to use OSPF network type point to point. If the WAN link initializes for both routers at the same time, which of the following answers are true? Man, stumpity stumped. How's that? All right, let's go with A. Let's go with A and D. Yeah, sounds good. All right. Per the command output, how many routers in our how many routers how many routes is router R9 fully adjacent over its gigabit 0-1 interface? What's that saying? Hmm. 2/5. What's 2/5? Oh, full adjacency. So it's D. It's 2. At least I think it is. An engineer connects routers R11, R12 to the same Ethernet LAN and configures them to use OSPF version 2. Which answer describes a combination of settings that would prevent the two pairs of routers from becoming OSPF neighbors? An engineer connects routers R11, R2 to the same Ethernet LAN. Okay, so they're connected to the same Ethernet LAN. You configured each of them to use OSPF version 2. Which answer describes a combination of settings that would prevent? Okay, so we want to prevent the two routers from becoming OSPF neighbors. Okay, so we want to prevent them from becoming OSPF neighbors. Okay. I love the answers around. All right. So we have R11's interface uses area 11, while R1. Which answers describe a combination of settings that would prevent two routers becoming OSPF neighbors? So we have A. A would do that, I think, right? R11's OSPF process uses process ID 11. That doesn't matter. The R1's 11 uses OSPF priority 11, while process no, that doesn't matter. All right, let's go with A and D. 4. Let's go with A and D. Whoa. Whoa. All right. Let's not look at the answers yet. I don't want to see them. I didn't see them, I swear. An engineer connects router R13 and R14 to the same same Ethernet LAN and configures them to use OSPF version 2, which answers describe a combination of settings that would prevent the two routers from becoming OSPF neighbors. Did we skip 4, or is this doing the same thing? Yes, it's doing the same thing. Which answers describe a conversation that would. So we want to prevent again. So both routers use interface IP reside in the same subnet. Both routers OSPF process to one. Both routers OSPF process uses. Both routers interfaces use a OSPF dead interval timer. I'm only going to choose select one answer on this one. So both routers interface IP addresses reside in the same subnet. Both routers OSPF process use process ID. Both routers outside OSPF. Both routers. Man, what's up, baby? Mwah! I am so tired, huh? Doing my best to stay awake. Struggling. I'm struggling, honey. I'm struggling. All right. Let's go with C, maybe. Our router 15 has been working, has been a working part of the network that uses OSPF version 2. An engineer then issues the shutdown command in the OSPF configuration mode on R15. Which of the following occurs? R15 empties the routing table of all OSPF learns, but keeps the links and database intact. Nope. R15's empties its link state database, but keeps OSPF native. Nope. R15 keeps OSPF neighbors open, but do not change. R15 keeps all OSPF neighbors, but cease all other OSPF. Okay. Oh, it does it in the OSPF configuration mode. Let's go with A on 6. Ooh. All right, so we got this one right. This one was totally wrong. This one was right. This one was right. And this one was right. And this one was way up. So I have to say we didn't do too bad on that chapter review. We didn't do too bad. Kind of happy about that. Now let's go over and see what we got wrong. Which one did we get wrong? We got 2 wrong. 2 was supposed to be B and C. Was it B and C? B, C, and 6 should have been D. Let's go take a look at what that means to us. All right. So we don't want the We don't want them becoming point to point. We don't want them becoming fully adjacent neighbors. So we got router R1 will dynamically discover R2, and router R1 will become either the designated router or the backup designated router. Okay. So is that when we get into the designated backup router? Is that what that's talking about? And then we have 6 here, which is D. R15 keeps all OSPF configurations, but sees all OSPF activities, routes LS, link state databases, and neighbors. Okay. All right. So that was our quick chapter. Before we jump into it, chapter review there. Let's take another deep breath, everybody, and let it out. And we're awake. Okay. Woo! We need more coffee. What's up, Paradox Bet? How we doing? Hope you're doing good, my friend. Yeah, I know we were talking earlier, and great, bro. I'm tired as heck. I was supposed to get some sleep earlier today, but I just never got around to going to bed, so I am wiped out, as you could probably tell. But we're doing good, though. We got CML already running. Actually, you know what I need to do? Now that I remember, we've got to get these routers finished initializing. Before I forget, so have you been able to do any self study or anything like that? I know we were kind of talking earlier. I'm just gonna do the 2 interfaces at a time so I don't blow them up. Have you been able to do any self study? Now that you got a little bit of a window to get a little bit more in. Yeah, hopefully you can do just a nice recap on some stuff real quick that you could be just to make you feel a little bit more confident. You did some Bosun. Nice. Glad to hear that, man. Glad to hear that. Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you, I guess, how is and you've probably told me this before, but I guess I just want to ask again. What is your take on Bosun? Was it worth the actual investment? And did you go after the package with the practice exam questions and the network simulator there, or did you just go after the practice exam question portion of Bosun? All right. So those are being that one's all done, and that one done. I'll let those finish up there. I'm doing only the exam questions, but for what I see, NetSim is also great. Is it? Yeah, so that's what I mean. Again, I've never used their NetSim product or their actual practice exam product, but I know a lot of people have. I've kind of heard some things that it is worth the investment, and some people saying that it isn't worth the investment. That's why I wanted to ask you if it was worth it. The EXIM is more difficult than the Rails CCNA exam. Is it really? That's pretty neat. Yeah, the money's definitely worth it. That's what's up. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Thank you for that. Thank you for that recommendation too. That's what I wanted to hear. I just wanted to. I wanted another person. I wanted somebody who, at least that I've been conversating with, opinion about it, that has used it. Because I've been looking at it, obviously. So what'd you go over today? Whoop, whoop. Welcome to the stream, everybody. You pump me up. All right, those are gonna finish. All right. All right. So OSPF network types. Two CCNA 200-01 exam topics might be completely misunderstood without taking a closer look at it yet. More default, a closer look at yet more default OSPF settings. In particular, the following exam topics refer to the specific per interface OSPF setting called the network type, even listing the keywords used to configure the setting in the exam topic. All right, so we have point to point and we have broadcast, okay? Point to point and broadcast. So that's what we're going to be covering today for our OSPF topics here. And we're going to spin up, let's get this done. Just want to get this, I like to get this done before we get over to it, because that way it doesn't take me so long to get these routers booted up. All right. All right. So here's a key topic. We got network type. We got broadcast, point to point, dynamically discovered neighbors. Yes and yes. Uses designated routers, backup designated routers. Broadcast, yes. Point to point, no. All right. Let's figure out why. All right. Let's at least discuss why. All right. The OSPF broadcast network type. OSPF defaults to use a broadcast network type on all type of Ethernet interfaces. Note that all the Ethernet interfaces in the example in Chapter 20 relied on that default setting. To see all the details of how OSPF broadcast networks work, this chapter begins with a different design than the example in Chapter 20. Instead of using a single area network design that connects 4 routers in the same subnet, as shown in the figure, all links reside in area 0, making the design a single area design. Okay, very nice. All right. The single area design used in this chapter. Okay. So what are we looking at? So it looks like, yeah. So it looks like this is one whole area, right there. And that's probably why it's identifying as this certain symbol we got going on here. Okay. The single area design used in this chapter. To get a sense of how OSPF operates with the broadcast network type, imagine that all 4 routers use a straightforward OSPF interface configuration like the router 1's configuration shown in the example. Both Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet interfaces on all 4 routers default to use type broadcast. Note that the configuration on router R2 and R3 mirror R1's configuration, except they use router IDs 2, 3, and 4, respectively. They use the IP addresses in the figure. All right. So it looks like we're going to be using the IP interface, the IP OSPF interface command on our topology that we're going to be creating today. All right. This simple network gives a great backdrop for which to observe the result of the broadcast network type on each router. Both interfaces, gigabit 00 and gigabit 0-1 on each router uses the broadcast network type and perform the following actions: attempting to discover neighbors by sending OSPF hellos to the 224.0.0.5 multicast address, an address reserved for sending packets. So that's the LSUs. So the LSUs are the packets, okay, that have the that are doing the link state advertising, okay, sending the packets to all OSPF routers in the subnet. Attempt to elect a designated router and backup designated router for each subnet on the interface with no other router on the subnet gigabit 0-1 with one of the interfaces with no other router had the on the subnet gigabit 0-1 become the designated router. Okay, sure. All right. Know the default timer difference between network types. So there's a network. So there's know the default timer difference between the network types. So the network timer. All right, what we'll do is we'll take a note of that when we get to that point. Where will it discuss this? All right, when we get to that point, just give me a hey, what's up? How are you, Shirley? Shirley Irby. How we doing, my friend? And say hi. Wanted to what you're showing here is way over my head. But keep it up, man. I'm good. That's awesome, man. Yeah, so we're reviewing. Just got back from the gym. Whoop whoop, getting you swollen. That's awesome, my friend. Good for you for going to the gym, my brother. You know, keeping your health maintained and stuff like that in these times can be difficult. So good on you for going to the gym. That's cool. Keep training. So what we're reviewing today. We're reviewing OSPF, so open shortest path first. This is again just like we had talked about earlier when we had our short conversation. What I stream primarily, at least right now, this is my journey to the CCNA 200-301 certification. So welcome, my good friend. So all right. Maridox, when we get to the point about the timer, just give me just give me a heads up on that too, so we can note what that topic as well. Okay. All right. So let's get back to where we're at. So when sending the OSPF message to the designated router and backup designated router, send the message to all OSPF designated routers on the multicast address 224.0.0.6. Okay, so when sending let's read this again. So when sending the OSPF message to the designated router or backup designated router, okay, send the message to all OSPF designated routers multicast address 224.0.0.6. Okay, when we're flooding those hello messages, we're going to be flooding it out that multicast address to 224.0.0.5. Okay, so that will be the multicast address we're using to flood. Okay, at least I'm gathering so far. But when we're sending these hello messages to the DR, so what that is implying, at least from what I am gathering. Thank you so much, Shirley. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the love. So what that is implying on R1 here, okay, on R1, we'll just do R2 and then say we have R3. We'll say R1 is the designated router, and then R2 here is the backup designated router. All right. If R3 had a let's say LSU, a link state update that it needed to advertise, what it's going to do, it's going to advertise that to the designated router and backup designated router on the 224.0.0.6 multicast address, okay? All right? But when R1 being the designated router here, okay, is flooding out updates, all right, all right, it's going to be flooding it to all the other non-designated routers on the 224.0.0.5 multicast address. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm getting from that sentence right there. Okay. So that's what I'm getting from that sentence right there. So let's just take note of that. All right. All right. Let's continue on here. All right. In the example, show some of the results using the show IP OSPF neighbor command. Note that R1 lists R2, R3, R4 and R as neighbors based on their router IDs there. So the 224, 333, 444 router IDs, confirming that R1 dynamically discovered the other routers. Also note that the output lists the 4.4.4.4 as the DR in 3.3.3.3 as the BDR. Okay, so it's listing 3.3.3 as the backup designated router and 4.4.4.4 as the designated router. Okay, now if you can remember when we initially when we set up OSPF, all right, and then say we cleared the OSPF process. OSPF is looking for the highest. All right, the highest. When it does it's like election. It's looking for the highest, like the highest router ID number or the highest IP number off of these interfaces. Okay, so though 1.1.1.1 could at one point been the DR. Say if we did the clear OSPF process command, all right, 4.4.4.4 at that point, will become the designated router. And then if we had a 3.3.3.3, that could be potentially turn into the backup designated router there. Okay, all right. All right. Let's keep it moving. All right. Verifying the network type broadcast. As discussed in this section, using designated routers on Ethernet links in Chapter 19, using understanding OSPF concepts. All discovered routers on the link should become neighbors and at least reach two-way state. For all neighboring relationships that include the designated router and backup designated router, the neighbor relationship should further reach the full state. That section defines the term fully adjacent. Okay, fully adjacent. Okay, as a special term that refers to the neighbors that reach this full state. This design in the figure with four routers on the same. So the same. That's what we're going to be creating in packet on Cisco Monolab. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the box, man, the box. All right, so in the same local area network, okay, and that's what we're going to create. Provides just enough routers so that one neighbor relationship will remain in the two-way state and not reach a full state. As a perfectly normal way for OSPF to operate. Okay, the figure shows the current conditions with the show commands. In this chapter, we're gathered with R4 as the designated router, R3 is the backup designated router, and as R2 and R1 as the I got to look up that terminology again. It's not what I thought it was when I originally had. It's DR other, but it's not. It's not what it's saying is DR other is not the designated router and it's not the backup designated. It's neither. That's pretty much what that kind of stands for. But I want to get you guys that was in chapter 19. Chapter 20. So there we go. All right. So full dr other. So the neighbor state is full. So if we had a full dr other, the neighbor state is full, and the neighbor is neither designated router nor is it backup designated router. It also implies that the local router is a designated router or backup designated router because the state is full. So it's pretty much stating if we had a local router as a designator or backup router, if the state is full, all right, we would have the two other routers, so R1 and R2 would be in the full / DR other state, okay? But we have another one that implies the local router is also a DR other because of otherwise the state would have reached a full state. So we have the two-way DR other. The neighbor state is in a two-way. The neighbor state is two-way. The neighbor is neither a designated router nor a backup designated router. That is the DR other router. Okay, so that would be implying for an instance where we had no designated router nor a backup designated router within that actual OSPF topology there. And that would be putting us all into a two-way DR other state. Okay, all right. So that's what that would be implying. Okay, all right. All right, let's continue on. All right. Now consider router R1's neighbors as listed in the example. Router 1 has 3 neighbors, all reachable out its gigabit 0-0 interface. However, R1 shows IP. R1's show IP OSPF neighbor command refers to the state of R1's relationship with the neighbor as a two-way, okay? Just like we were just talking about, two-way with router 2.2.2. So router 2, because both R2 and R1 currently serve as a DR other router, that is, they wait ready to become the backup designated router for either the designated router or the backup designated router were to fail. Oh! Good looks on the follow. Let me go over to my, what do we got? Very Dark Coffee. I love that name. Good looks on that follow. I love me some dark coffee. So I love you some more. I take my coffee the same way your name is. All right. How are we doing? Welcome to the stream. All right. So let's continue on. Examining the example one last time. R1 as the DR other router itself has two neighboring relationships that reach its full state. Okay, R1's neighbor adjacency to DR router 4 and R1's neighbor adjacency to the backup designated router R3. But R1 has a total of 3 neighbors, all reachable off of the router 1's gigabit 0-1's 0-0 interface. So out of its interface here, what it's stating is because it's making relationships, neighboring relationships with 3 other routers here. All right. That's why it's putting itself into the DR other state. Okay, all right, and the same, for instance, is going to be happening with router 2 over here, and that's why router 2 is also putting itself into the DR other state because of how this topology is set up right here, where we're going to have it all in the same local area network. Okay, all right, all right. What's kind of Very Dark Coffee. Just found about you through the David Bumble Discord. Someone posted a link. What? Somebody posted a link about me in the David Bumble Discord. Shout out to my homies over at the David Bumble Discord. Holy guacamole. Thank you very much, man. You just made my day, Very Dark Coffee. That's awesome. That is amazing. I am actually I've been on that I've been on their Discord for a little while now. David Bumble is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. He's the one that actually lit the fire underneath my to cook us here that got me started in my CCNA journey. So welcome. I hope you can join along here. I don't know. Are you tell me what you're currently studying. Are you studying for CCNA? Are you past the CCNA level? Myself, I'm currently studying for the CCNA cert myself. I got a people shout out to Maradoxback too. He or she's gonna be taking their cert here just in a couple of days too. So what shows them some love and some encouragement as well. Hey, you guys, if you guys do the I made some updates to the Discord as well, to my Discord channel if you want to join it. If you do the exclamation point Discord in the chat, you guys can get a link to my Discord channel, and yeah, chat it up in there, guys. We can take this conversation on later, and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm studying for CCNA. I scheduled my test 4.5 months from now. 4.5 months from now. Awesome. That should give you a good amount of time to really get down this fundamental knowledge. If you don't mind me, can I ask you, where are you at with your actual study process? David Bum was very David Bum was awesome. I love me some David Bumble. I've purchased so many of David Bumble's actual courses. His courses off Udemy. I'm one of the few and far people that actually purchases his full GNS3 course off of GNS3 itself website. But yeah. All right. Let's do this real quick. Let's start making. Let's go back here. I need just one piece of information, real quick. All right. So we got R1, R2. This would be R3 right here. 3. This is R2, and this is R4. I just need some information. So we got 10.1.1.1. We got 10. Okay. This is very simple. So this is going to be 10.4, right? Yep. 10.1.1.4, and then 10.1.1.3. And then we got some other interfaces. What do we got? Oh, this is so simple. This is going to be a real easy topology, guys. 1.1.3.3, 10.1.1.4 to 10.1. Don't mind my hand scribbling real quick, guys. I'm just scribbling on here. I just needed to take a look at what this was so we can get this starting to set up here. My only concern is so we need one more. We're going to need one more device. Let's grab a unmanaged switch, guys, like a hub. All right. Let's grab a hubby hub. That way we can connect everything to this hubby hub here. We're going to just call you hub 1. The hub 1 here. Yeah, I don't want to move you. Everything's going to be connected. Yeah. All right. That way it acts the same way as it's acting in that other topology there. All right. All right. So here. So what's interface? Gigabit 0-0 IP address 10.1.1/255.255.255.0. Alright, no shut. Right, and then we'll do a interface gigabit 0/1. Alright, and we're just going to give that the IP address All right, 10 dot, what is it, 11? Yeah. It's real easy. All right, 10 dot, 1 dot 1 dot 11 dot 1 255.255.25. This interface don't matter, but I'm just going to be putting it in there because the book has it in there, and the book might use it later. Okay, so now let's go back to the interface gigabit 0-0 because the book is implying that it's going to be using the IP OSPF interface command. So we're going to say IP OSPF. All right. We're going to say process 1. So the process 1. Okay. We're going to be saying area 0. Okay. All right. Now let's exit out of there. Now let's give this the, let's move into router OSPF 1. And now we're going to give it the router ID of 1.1.1.1. Okay. Exit. And we'll hit this with a little do-right. A do-right. Your Twitch and YouTube viewers count block. Oh, snap. Hold on. Hold on. Thank you for bringing that up, too. By the way, always forgetting to do that. And what I can do. All right. Can you snap-a-doodles? Oh, snap-a-doodles. I should have made, let me zoom into a little bit more too for you guys so you guys can see. All right. So cool. Thank you for bringing that up to Maxiwa. All right. I appreciate that. That helps me out. So good looks on that. All right. All right. So we're back here. All right. So R1's done. Let's move on to R2. R2D2. Oh, what do I got? Ooh, I'm gonna name you R3, buddy, and I'm gonna name you R2 because of how the topology is. No big deal. Let's name you this real quick. I'll name you 3 real quick. I'll go back to you and name you 2. Perfection. A perfection. All right. Come on, Cisco model lab. Don't break on me. All right, there it goes. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this fast. Fast, man. Fast. All right. Interface. Gigabit. 0-0. IP address. And we got 10 dot. It's 10.1.1 dot. Yes, because we're keeping it all in the same subnet. Domain. And then shut, and then we're going to say, okay, and then we have interface gigabit 0-1, IP address 10.1.22, 1/255.255.255.0, shut. All right. Now let's go into, let's exit real quick before we initializing that. On the other routers, hey baby, how we doing? Router, if I could spell router, right? Shout out router. Shout out router. All right. Router ID, 2.2.2.2. All right, perfect. Now let's move back into interface interface gigabit 0-0. We're going to say IP OSPF. All right. We're going to give it the process ID 1. Okay. And we're going to say area 0. All right. All right. And what we'll do is we won't turn on this hub just yet. Oh, I love my baby. You right. All right, cool. We'll wait to turn this hub on to the very end too. All right, so EN comfort D. All right, interface. Let's give it the router ID real quick first. Router OSPF 1. Router ID 3.3.3.3. There you go. That's fine. All right. Let's exit out of this now. Well, let's go into interface. Interface gigabit 0-0. IP address 10.1.1.3 25.245.245.0. No shut. All right. Interface gigabit 0-1. And then IP address. I love you, boo boo. Say hello to my nightbot. I love you too, boo boo. 10.1.33.1 25.25.25.0. Oh, what did I do? Yeah. They're distracting me. Woman. All right. Let's do that with a do right. That's done. R4 real quick. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done, guys. Guys and gals, we're almost done. At least with the configuration part. Ooh. You know what I forgot to do? Did I do it? All right, I didn't do it. So good thing we came back to R3 real quick. All right, interface gigabit 0-0. IP OSPF. Process ID 1. Area 0. All right, cool. Now let's go to R4. All right. All right, where are we at? So router OSPF. Process ID 1. And then router. Yep, gonna give you that. 4.4.4.4. Interface gigabit 0-0. IP address 10.1.1.4 25.25.25.0. A no shut. And then IP OSPF process ID 1 area 0. And then interface gigabit 0-1. IP address 10.1.4.1/25.25.25.0 and no shut. Okay. All right. Now let's hit that with a do right. Now let's turn on our what happened? I'm going too fast for this. That's what's going on. I'm too fast for the configurations. All right. Now let's turn on that hub and let's look at what we got. We should start seeing there we go. So we're already starting to see some of the adjacencies come through here. All right, now if we do a do show IP OSPF database, let's take a look at what we got. So what do we got? So we got we got our link IDs for all the other routers, okay? And let's do a do show OSPF, IP OSPF. Let's do a interface brief. Yes, beautiful. So just like in that topology, guys, we are the DR other. All right. Now let's confirm that on router 2 to see if we set up this configuration exactly how that other in the book it was too. So let's do a do show IP OSPF interface brief. Perfect. Woo! And then if we go to R4 over here, R4 exit. Let's do show IP OSPF interface brief. Yes, just like we have in the perfect, just like we have in the actual topology in the book here. We set it up exactly the same way. All right, so we're tracking. Choo choo. All right, exit. Do show IP OSPF interface brief. Perfect. And router R3 is the backup designated router. Okay. So right here, guys, state under state right there. All right. So if you're curious to where I'm looking at right here. So under the state, I'm looking at for the what state is this router currently in? Okay. All right. So we're good. We're cooking with gasolina right now. All right. And if we were to say, let's just shoot in the dark here. Let's say what's ping. Let's do a do ping 10.1.1, 10.1.11.1. And let's see. You know what? It's not going to. Yeah, it's not going to. Exactly. So it's not going to actually be able to ping that. But if we were, because we didn't, it's not actually because we did the IP, we did the interface. Remember, because we did the IP interface command, we didn't actually do a OSPF network command. So we're not actually looking for we're not actually looking for a network. That's one thing to keep in mind as what we just did. My baby's working and listening. My baby is working and listening. All right. So that's why we can't ping the. We're not going to be able to ping any of the exterior interfaces off of any of these routers here. All right. Cool. Let's go back to the book real quick. Share. Yeah. Boink. Beautiful. You're beautiful. I just want you to know you're my favorite girl. Alright. Hopefully that looks good. Yeah, baby. Ooh, it's a little big, but yeah. Okay. There we go. There it goes. All right. We're in there like swimwear. We're in there like swimwear, guys. So default information orient. Say if we had a like a default static route that we wanted, you know, say we had a couple routers, okay, that went out to the internet here, and we had a static route, say on this router, we're just going to say, for instance, router 1 here, okay. We had a default static route of I don't know, you know, the 0.0.0/0, aiming towards the 192.168.1.1 maybe. All right, so if we had that default static route, at least this is what I'm getting. So the default information orient would advertise that static route to our other OSPF neighbors here, so they would know that this would be a actual, like, a default static route. And then you could set this to, I believe you could set it to a permanent state as well too, under the default information orient command as well. Again, you know, that's if we had a topology where we had this type of need that we needed to shoot out to the big deal internet here. So but yeah, I believe, let me just, yeah, let me get you the correct answer. I believe I covered it. I believe that covers what that meant. I want to say that was close to the end of our chapter 20 that we're reviewing last night. Yeah, okay. So that was at the end. So finally, the feature gives the engineer control over the router's orient. This route. The OSPF subcommand default information orient tells OSPF on R1 to advertise a default route when it owns default routes is working, and advertise the default route as down when its own default route fails, pretty much. Default route resulting in the default information orient command. So it's exactly that. So yeah, all routers should dynamically learn default routes used for all traffic going to the internet, so that all packets destined to a location in the internet go to that one router connected to the internet. Okay, what does autocost reference bandwidth 1000? So autocost reference bandwidth 10,000. What you're telling OSPF to do is to, instead of giving everything the default, so fast Ethernet down, so fast Ethernet gigabit, 10 gigabit, 100 gigabit, it all has a default cost. All right, a default cost of 1. All right, when you give the autocost reference bandwidth command 10,000, 100,000, or yeah, I believe it can go up to 100,000. I believe so. What you're doing then is the iOS will then say, okay, I have a gig interface. That's going to be now a cost of 100. Where now I have a 10 gig interface. That's going to have a cost of 10. I have 100 gigabit interface, and that's going to have a cost of now 1. All right, and so on and so forth. But obviously, as the if you go down the other range, it'll get, the cost will get bigger. So that way, it'll auto, instead of giving everything the cost of 1 from fast Ethernet down, you're able to now, instead of going in and statically configuring all of it to take the fastest, say, route or the fastest wire you got, you're allowing the iOS to make that decision for you. So, yeah. Default information orientate is not on the CCNA, so you probably don't need to know how to configure it. Knowing what is enough. Okay, cool. What will two routers on a point-to-point? What will two routers on a point-to-point link? Will two routers on a point-to-point link become DR and BDR? No, they won't. I want to say they won't become DR or BDR on a point-to-point link. That's actually what we're going over today, Paradox Pat. I believe that's what we're going over today, is on a point-to-point link. We won't have that. Let me see. So here we go. We got point-to-point and broadcast. So I believe on a point-to-point link, you won't have a DR and a BDR, if I'm not mistaken. And thank you, Max CY, for confirming that. And thank you for the questions, Maradox Specs. I appreciate the questions, man. You know I love you. You know I love you. Keep them coming, baby. Keep them coming. All right. Oh, here we go. So this is what I guess just answered our question for us. Right here is on the broadcast here. You'll have dynamic discovery of the neighbors, and yes, you'll have DRs and DBRs, BDRs. But on a point-to-point link, you will still have dynamic discovery of neighbors, but you will not have DRs and BDRs. Cool. All right, so we built out topology. That's the command I was looking for right there. The do show OSPF neighbors. Okay, that's what I wanted to look at. That's the command I wanted right there. All right. Show IP OSPF neighbors. Perfect. That's the one I was looking for right there. That's what I wanted to see. This is what I wanted to see right here. All right. Cool. All right, I'm happy, Pappy. I'm happy, Pappy. All right. Verifying options with the network type broadcast. As discussed in this section, using designated routers on Ethernet links in the chapter 19, understanding OSPF concepts. All discovered routers on the link should become neighbors and at least reach the two-way state for all neighbor relationships that include the DR or BDR. The neighboring relationship should further reach the full state. Okay. That section defines the term fully adjacent as a special term that refers to that neighbor that reaches that full state. Okay. The design in the figure, the 4 routers on the same subnet, local area network, provide just enough routers so that one neighboring relationship will remain in the two-way state. All right, let's say that again. Providing just enough routers so that one neighboring relationship will remain in the two-way state and not reach the full state. All right, as a perfectly normal way for OSPF to operate. In the figure, show the current conditions when the show command in this chapter will gather. Okay, with R4 as the DR, R3 as the BDR, and R1 and R2 as the DR other. Okay, exactly what our oh, you're learning Encore. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So exactly what our topology, we were able to recreate this topology exactly how it played out here. Okay. So very good. I'm happy. All right. Now consider the router R1's relationship listed in the example. Has three neighbors, all reachable out its gigabit 0-0 interface. However, R1 show IP OSPF neighbor command refers to the state of R1's relationship with R2 as the two-way state, okay, with R2.2.2.2 R2 there, okay. Because R1 and R2 currently serve as DR other routers, that is they wait ready to become BDR, so backup designated routers for either the DR or the BDR fails, their neighbor relationships remain, and the two-way state. Examining examining one last time, as the DR other routers itself has two neighbor relationships that reach the full state. R1's neighbor adjacency would designated router 4, and R1's neighbor adjacency would backup designated router 3. But R1 has a total of 3 neighbors, all reachable off of, again, the gigabit 0-0's interface. Okay? All right, I know I kind of probably reread all of that all over again. That is because I want to hammer that down on how my thought process is working for this particular subject. Okay? All right? All right. So let's continue. The idea that R1 has 3 neighbors off of its gigabit 0-0's interface, with 2 being full adjacent, is reflected on the far right of the output of the show IP OSPF interface brief command. It shows the 2/3, meaning 2 neighbors in the full state off of the gigabit 0-0, with 3 total neighbors on that interface. Also note that this command state column differs from the show IP OSPF neighbor command in that the show IP OSPF interface brief command lists the local router role on the interface, with gigabit 0-1 acting as the DR and R1's gigabit 0-0 acting as the DR other. Okay, now we didn't add the interface command to the other interfaces on the outer. We could, I guess we should, to take a look at that. If it gets pertinent to what is the discussion of what is going to continue on here, we'll go back over to Cisco Modeling Lab and we'll add those interface IP OSPF interface commands to those actual other interfaces if we need to. Okay. All right. So far, this topic has described the effect of OSPF broadcast network types by taking advantage of the default setting of the Ethernet interface. To see the setting, use the show IP OSPF, the IP OSPF interface command as shown in the example. The first highlighted items identify the network type. However, this command output restates many of the facts seen in both the show IP OSPF neighbor command and the show IP OSPF interface brief. All right, command in the example. So take the time to browse through all the examples and focus on the additional highlighted to see and get familiar with those items. Okay, so let's do the show IP interface brief command. Let's just do that real quick. So let's do a show IP OSPF interface brief command. All right, and again, here we go. So exactly, just minus out the fact that we haven't added the IP in OSPF interface command to the exterior interfaces on either one of these routers here. Okay, so just minus that out of the figure example that's shown in the book here. But you can see here how, again, we have two, it's saying we are in the DR other state, okay, we have two, all right, fully adjacent, all right, so we have two fully adjacent, we have made two full adjacent to two other routers, okay, with a third, okay, a third in a possible two-way state here, okay, all right, so we have two fully adjacent, okay, states, all right, with the BDR and the DR, all right, but we have on R2, we're in the two-way state, okay. Nice beard, by the way. I hope you love it. I love my beard too. I think it's pretty awesome. Thank you for that comment. Appreciate that, my good friend. All right. So here's just again some code excerpts from the book here. Again, we were just looking at all that, so we'll continue on. Although you would need to configure, although you would not need to configure an Ethernet interface to use the broadcast network type. Some older type of interfaces over the years have used different default and with the option to use the broadcast network type. In those cases, the IP OSPF network broadcast interface subcommand would configure that setting. Okay, so the IP OSPF network broadcast, okay, inside of the interface. So right here. So again, in the interface subcommand. So that's if we were like in gigabit 0-1's interface. Okay, so in the interface subcommand, we would use, again, this is stating on older devices, we would use the IP OSPF network broadcast command. Okay, all right. Configuring to influence the DRB and BDR election. Okay, so we're going to talk about, this is going to be next, getting into how to influence this actual election that takes place. In some cases, you may want to influence the OSPF designated router election. However, before deciding that makes sense in every case, note that OSPF designated and backup designated router elections rules will not result in a specific router always being the designated router, and in other ways being the backup designated router, assuming that is up and working. In short, here are rules once a designated router and backup designated router have been elected. All right. If the designated router fails, the backup designated router becomes the designated router and a new backup designated router is elected. When a better router enters the subnet, no preemptions of the existing designated router or backup designated router occurs. So let me read that one more time. So when a better router enters the subnet, no preemptions of the existing designated routing or the backup designated router occurs. So that what that is stating, what that is implying is if we were going to town and we say we had set up this whole entire topology and I had that hub already on, okay, and I set up R1 and I set up R2, well, this is R3, let me not forget, and R2, and then R4. All right, if I did everything in R1 first, okay, like I kind of did, but remember, I kept the hub off, okay? But if I did everything in R1 first, oh, what up, Code BGP? How we doing? So if I had done all of the configurations again in R1 first, and I had that hub on, R1 would have actually became the designated router, okay? And then if I went over to R2 and I had done that next, R2 would have become the backup designated router, okay? Just because it hasn't figured out that there's going to be an R3 and R4. OSPF doesn't know that yet. It's not going to take a guess. But once it it has a designated router and a backup designated router, it says, okay, I already have these two, so I'm good. I don't need to run this election all over again. But again, if we were to do this all and we had this still on, and then if we were to come over, hit back over to R1 and we did declare OSPF process command and kind of reset it, I was like, no. Please use switches, it's hurting me. Well, the only reason why I say hub, and I know we're getting rid of hubs everywhere, is I don't want to imply that this is a. I want to imply that this. Oh, so okay, I'll make everybody's night, and I'll say it's an unmanaged switch. What's the difference between a hub and a switch? A hub is all. It's just all on. It's unmanaged. It's all on one broadcast. Hold on, a collision broadcast domain. So you can have collisions on a hub. It's pretty much like it's nearly layer 1 type technology. Where a switch obviously is layer 2. Yeah. So that I understand that. And that, again, the only reason why I'm calling this a hub is because it is an unmanaged. It's the unmanaged switch image on Cisco Modern Lab. So there's no, I can't configure it, I can't get into it, I can't make VLANs. So it's just allowing me to snap everything together. Because it would have been the only way for me to make this. Now, yes, I could have used the switch, the iOS VL2 image here, all right, but it obviously it'll eat up more of my processing power on the VM here, and there won't be same collision domain. Yep, points for you. Not the same collision domain. So yeah, that's the only reason why so I'll call it the unmanaged switch. All right, from now on, we'll call it here. I'll even change just to make everybody a little bit happier. We're gonna call it we'll call it unmanned switch. We'll call it unmanned 1. There we go. There we go. You are unmanned 1. No more hubs for you. No more hubs for you. Welcome, Cloud BGP. Glad to see you. You're back in the stream, my friend. Glad to see you back. So that's pretty much what we were just reading there with when a better router enters a subnet, no preemption of the existing designated router or backup designated router would happen. Noted by the icon and the arrows on it. Technically, the icon in CML is a switch. Noted by. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is a it is a switch, but it's on that I get it just doesn't have, like, I can't, there is no command line to it. I mean, you have Cisco, you use Cisco Modern Lab, you know what I'm saying. But yeah. All right. So as a result, stop scrolling so fast. All right. As a result of these rules, while you configure a router to be the best or highest priority router to become the designated router in the election, increase the router's statistical chance of being the designated router at a given point in time. If the router fails, other routers will become the designated router and the backup designated router, and the best router will not be the designated router again until the current designated router or the backup designated router fails. So again, thank you. So again, to go back to the logic in which OSPF is using by what it's saying in that statement there is, even if that router, so if R4 was to fail and to go down, even if it was the designated router now, if it came back up, obviously R3 now became the designated router, R2 is now the backup designated router, okay? All right, but R4 would now be it would be the DR other now with R1 in that two-way state, okay? All right, and it would not, again, become the designated router until R3 were to go down, okay? Then that election were to take place. R4 would then now become, again, the designated router because of the priority, the router ID that we had given it originally at the 4.4.4.4, okay? All right. So, yeah. All right. Note, if you have begun to think about STP, so span and tree protocol election, note that the rules are similar, but with two key differences. Okay, STP span and tree protocol uses the lowest is the best approach. All right, and always allows new switches to preempt the existing root switch to become the root. OSPF uses the highest is best approach and does not preempt the designated router as noted. So what it's that stating is, if you were to take a brand new switch, all right, if we were to just link states, so we're probably going to be getting to more link state conversation too as this chapter progresses here in 21. But again, so what that statement is saying is, if we were to take a switch, all right, L1, and we had L2 and we had L3 here, okay, and they already did their STP convergence and whatnot. If we were to take a brand new switch and we were to dump that into our topology, STP logic, STP says, okay, is L4, does that have a lower root cost than whatever, we'll say L1 is the root switch on in this topology here, okay? Does L4 have even a lower root cost than L1? And if it does, okay, we're gonna switch things up now, and we're gonna make L4 now the root switch. All right. So it's going to redo that election because we entered something new into that topology. Okay, where OSPF with these routers won't do that election all over again until there's another failure or some kind of event that causes that election to happen again. Oh, Max CY, thank you very much for stopping by, my friend. Enjoy your dinner. Hope you can come join me again. It was a pleasure having you. And yeah, like I said, so Monday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when you can always catch my stream here on Twitch. So make sure you follow. That way you get the notifications. And if you didn't already, if you didn't already, you can join the Discord if you want to, Max CY. But have a good night, my friend. Make sure you please the wife. Pleasing the wife is a very important thing. Trust me, I know. I have a wife that is very hard to please. But have a good night, my good friend. All right. So, let's continue. Where are we at? All right. So we talked about STP and how STP has a opposite type of logic, okay, than how OSPF is doing 1730. Oh yeah. Wife equals boss. Wife always equals boss. The wife your partner or your wife or whatever have you is always the keeper of the gonads, as I was to say. All right, key topic. The highest OSPF interface priority, the highest value wins during an election. The values are ranging from 0 to 255, okay? The highest OSPF router ID If the priority ties, the election chooses the router with the highest OSPF router ID. Okay, so let's read this one more time. These two key topics: the highest OSPF interface priority. Okay, the highest value wins during the election, with the value being from 0 to 255. All right. The highest OSPF router ID. Okay, if the priority ties, the election chooses the router with the highest OSPF router ID. All right. I heard that. It's easy. I'm easy compared to you. Whoa! The wife's up in the stream calling me out. All right. For example, imagine all four routers in the design shown in the figure. Try to elect the designated router and the backup designated router at the same time. For instance, after powering on, after a power hit, in which all four routers power off and back on, again, they all participate in the election. They all tie with different with default priority values of 1 in this example. In this case, R4 with the numeric highest router ID of 4.4.4.4 wins the election. Okay, R3 with the next obviously becomes the backup designated router. So again, that goes back to that same exact logic. If there was another event, then yes, the election would re-happen again. That's why men hug the purse a little tighter when they go to the store near the dressing room. You will have your shirts by the time he's done. A family of CCNAs. Exactamundo. We're all going to be network engineers. I promise we are. All right. All right. To influence the election, you could set the various router IDs with your preferred router with the highest router ID value. Okay, so to influence the election, you would influence it by giving the higher router ID value to whatever router you want to make the quote-unquote the designated router that you believe should be the designated router. Okay. However, many networks choose OSPF router IDs to help identify the routers easily instead of using the OSPF's priority setting. Makes better sense. For instance, if an engineer preferred that router 1 be the designated router, the engineer could add the configuration in the example to set the interface priority to 99. So here we go. Here's an actual command we haven't used yet. All right, that is the IP OSPF priority. All right, so if we wanted to, implement that we have R1 as our designated router now, we would implement on the interface. So this is a interface subcommand. Okay, so we would have to be in the interface. So say for instance in gigabit 0-0, just like in this code excerpt here, we would be in the interface command. We would say IP OSPF priority. We would just give it the cost value that we want, the highest cost value. So we'll say 99, just like in this instance. All right. Preempt command. Yeah. All right. Script has that BGP in ERGP2. Let me look. Oh, does it really? All right. Yeah, look that up. That would be a nice little tidbit for the day about EGP and ERGRP and BGP. All right. The configuration shows R1's interface priority value now as 99. In the show IP OSPF interface gigabit 0-0 command that follows confirms the setting. However, the last two commands in the example seem to show that the DR in BDR has not changed at all. That output is indeed correct. Okay. In that the example note that the show IP OSPF neighbor command still lists R4 again as the DR, meaning that R4 still acts as the DR, while the show IP OSPF interface brief command lists R1 state role as the DR other. Okay. Just to complete the process, shows the result after forcing a free election by failing the local area. So if we okay, let's do this. Let's do this. All right. So let's go into interface. Let's go into that interface again. Okay, interface gigabit 0-0. All right, we're going to say IP OSPF. All right, priority. Just make sure. See if this, hopefully this image has it. It does. Priority, we'll say 99, just as the book. Okay. All right. Now again, we'll do the show IP OSPF interface brief. All right, it's still listing as the DR other. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll do the exact same thing. We'll make a failure on the unmanaged switch here. All right, on the unmanaged switch. Look, it does not only BGP, DRV2, and FHR, HP, HRS. Preempt command. Although I don't know. What is that? EGRP do. So the preempt command. Okay. All right. Thank you for looking that up. All right. So let's bring up that unmanaged switch now. Okay. And you'll see what just happened here. Okay. So we're making those adjacencies now again. Okay. All right. Yeah, let me just write this configuration real quick. Okay. All right. And then again, we'll do the show IP OSPF interface command. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Oh, let's do the neighbors. That's the command I wanted. All right. Now, here we go. So now R3, look at that. So R3 and R4 became the DR others now. Huh? That's cool. And let's do the show interface brief. All right. And we are the DR other. Well, we're the DR. We're the designated router now. Okay. All right. So again, we changed that priority setting on the interface. Okay. All right. And then we forced that election to happen again by shutting down that unmanaged switch here. All right. Which and then brought it back up, obviously, and then forced that election to happen all over again. Okay. All right. All right. Yep. Just to complete the process. All right. So here we go. All right. The OSPF point-to-point network type. The other OSPF network type mentioned in the CCNA 200-301 topic, point-to-point works well from data link for data links that by their nature have just two routers on that link. All right. For example, consider the topology in the figure, which shows router 1 with 3 wide area network links, 2 Ethernet WAN links, and 1 serial link. Okay, so this was the similar topology of what we created yesterday. Okay, so this is exactly the same topology as we created yesterday. All right. First focus on the serial links itself to review. The jagged line, obviously that represents the serial, the represents the physical link. That can be most have 2 devices using the same link. Specifically, R1 and R4 in this case, the link does not support the ability to add a third router to the link. As you might guess, the data link protocols to control a link with most 2 devices can work differently than Ethernet. For instance, the data link protocol most often uses on the link HDLC or PPP does not support data link broadcast. All right, so HDLC, there's that word again, in PPP. So high level data link control and point to point. Okay, high level data link control and point to point. All right, does not support data link broadcasts. Okay, next consider the OSPF point to point network type. It exists for serial links and other links that use a point to point topology. These links often do not support data link broadcast. Additionally, with only 2 devices on the link, using a DR and BDR is no help. Okay, and it actually adds a little bit extra convergence time. Using a network type of point to point tells the router to not use the DR, BDR on that link. Okay, while you may see some serial links in networks today, the CCNA and CCNP Enterprise Exam makes no specific mention of serial technology at this point. Okay, however, you may see other point-to-point links in some Ethernet WAN links. Okay, let me read that sentence one more time. While you may see some serial links in networks today, the CCNA and the CCNP Enterprise Exams make no specific mention of serial technology at this point. However, you may see other point-to-point links, like some Ethernet WAN links. All right. To connect the thoughts. Note that all Ethernet WAN link in this book happen to use a point-to-point Ethernet WAN service called Ethernet Private Wire Service, or simple Ethernet line, or E-line. Okay. For that service, the service provider will send Ethernet frames between the 2 devices, routers connected to that service, but only those 2 devices. In other words, the E-link is a point-to-point service in concept. While the Ethernet data link protocol supports broadcast frames, only 2 devices can exist on that link, and there is no advantage to using a DR or BDR. As a result, many engineers prefer instead use an OSPF point-to-point network type on Ethernet WAN links that in effect acts as a point-to-point link. All right, shows the configuration of router R1's gigabit 0-0 interface in the figure to use OSPF network type point-to-point. R2 on the other side of the WAN link would need the same configuration command on its matching interface. All right. OSPF network types, point-to-point, and Ethernet WAN interfaces. All right. Configure terminal, and here's just going to be some code right here for you guys, ripped right out of a router. Okay, so they're going to go into the interface, the sub interface command mode. All right, IP OSPF network point-to-point. All right, show IP OSPF show gigabit 0-0-0. Network type point-to-point. Cost state. It's changed the state now to point-to-point. Neighbor count is 1. Adjacent neighbor count is 1. Adjacent with neighbor 2.2.2.2. All right. Note that the highlighted portion of the show command in the example, the first two highlights note that the network type. The final highlight with the two two lines note that R1 has a neighbor on the interface, a neighbor with which it has become fully adjacent per the output. Okay. Example closes this section with a confirmation of some of those facts with two more commands. Note that the show IP OSPF neighbor command, again, that's a good one. On R1, list R2, the router ID 2.2.2.2 with the full state, but with no DR nor BDR designation. So it doesn't show, because there is no designation for that in that instance with the point-to-point link. Okay, all right. To act as a reminder that the link does not use designated routers or backup designated routers. The second command, the show IP OSPF interface brief, shows the state, the local router role as a point-to-point, all right, which is short, obviously, for point-to-point, with a counter of 1 for the number of fully adjacent neighbors and the total numbers of neighbors. Okay. Example, OSPF network type, point-to-point and Ethernet WAN interface on R1. So it's just doing, again, here's the show IP OSPF neighbor command. All right. We have the full state. All right. Again, here it's stating the state, the actual state of which. All right. Point-to-point, P to P, point-to-point. All right. And it's neighbors, 1 and 1. Okay. All right. All right. When using Ethernet WAN links to behave as point-to-point links, consider using OSPF network type point-to-point rather than using the default broadcast type. All right. OSPF neighboring relationships. A router's OSPF configuration enables OSPF on a set of interfaces. iOS then attempts to discover other neighbors on those interfaces by sending and listening for OSPF hello messages. However, once discovered, two routers may not become neighbors. They must have compatible values for several settings as listed in the hello exchange between the two routers. The second major section of this chapter examines those reasons. All right. OSPF neighbor requirements. After the OSPF router here's a hello from a new neighbor, the router protocol examines the information in the hello and compares that information with the local router on own settings. If the settings match, great. All right. If not, the router does not become a neighbor because there is no formal term for all of these items that the router protocol considers. This book just calls them neighboring requirements. Okay, neighboring requirements. All right, for OSPF, with some comments about the various issues in the following table. Okay, so interfaces must be in the output. Yep. Access control list must not filter routing protocol messages. All right. Interfaces must be in the same subnet. Very good. They must pass routing protocol neighbor authentication if configured. So if configured. Hello and hold dead timers must match. Router IDs must be unique. They must be in the same area. OSPF process must not be shut down. Okay. Neighboring interfaces must use the MTU setting. Okay. Neighboring, and let me get you the terminology for MTU because I don't want to just guess it off the top of my head on what I believe it is. I know it, but it's one of those things that if you don't continue to remind yourself of what it is, you'll forget it. I'll find it. And I'll tell you. All right, MTU. Anybody out in chat, just drop the term for MTU if you can real quick. It has eluded me, at least correctly has eluded me. All right. Neighboring interfaces must use same OSPF network type. Okay. First, consider the meaning. Meaning of the two rightmost columns. The column labeled required for OSPF means that the items must be working correctly for the neighboring relationship to work correctly. Note that all the items in the column list a yes, meaning that all must be correct for a neighboring relationship to work correctly. The last column states neighbor missing if correct. All right. For an item listed in the yes in this column, if that item is configured incorrectly, the neighbor will not appear in the list of the OSPF neighbors. For instance, with the show IP OSPF neighbor command. All right. Next, focus on the shaded items on the top of the table. The symptoms that occur if either of these is a problem is that the show IP OSPF neighbor command would not list the other router. For instance, the first item states that the router's interface must be in working. If the router's interface is not working, the router cannot send an OSPF message and discover any OSPF neighbors on that interface. The middle section of the table, the unshaded rows, focus on some OSPF settings. These items must be correct, but if not, they also result in neighboring not being listed in the output of the show IP OSPF neighbor command. As you can see, using the IP OSPF neighbor command can give you a good starting point to troubleshoot OSPF on the exam and in real life. Okay, so the show IP OSPF neighbor command is a powerful command. That's exactly what it's stating. It can show you a good bit of information that you're just going to need to know just to get the ball rolling on some troubleshooting issues when it comes to OSPF. All right. If you see the neighbor you expect to see, great. If not, the table gives you a good list to use for items to investigate on. Okay. Finally, the last section in the shaded, the last couple of OSPF settings that give a different symptom when incorrect. Again, the two items must be correct for OSPF neighbors to work. However, for these two items, when not correct, the router can list the other router as a neighbor, but the neighborship relationship does not work properly in that the router does not exchange link state advertisements as they should. All right. The next table relists some of the requirements from the other table, along with the most useful commands in which to find the answer. So we have the hello and the dead timers must match. So the show IP OSPF interface command, they must be in the same area. The show IP OSPF interface brief command. The router IDs must be unique. So the show IP OSPF command, they must pass another neighbor's authentication. So the show IP OSPF interface command. And then finally, the OSPF process must not be shut down. So the show IP OSPF or the show IP OSPF command. All right, either one of those commands. Okay. The rest of the section looks at some of the items in the table in a little bit more detail. All right. One configuration choice that people sometimes think is an issue, but it not is the process ID as defined by the router OSPF process ID. So when we are adding the router OSPF process ID command, all right, with no impact on whether the two routers become OSPF neighbors. So that has no effect on two routers becoming OSPF neighbors. Okay, so that has no actual effect on how two routers will create an adjacent neighborship. Okay. All right. Issues that prevent neighboring adjacencies. The next few pages look at three of the topics from the table from which if a problem exists, the routers does not become a neighbor. That is the unshaded part of the table. To show the issues, this section uses the same topology shown in the earlier, but now with some incorrect configuration introduced. In other words, the configuration match that began this chapter, but with the following errors included now. All right, so they're just mixing things up on the earlier topology that we created here over in Cisco Modern Lab. They just broke it now to show how we would get our neighborship back up and running. Okay, so R2 has been configured both with both local area interfaces in area 1, whereas the other 3 routers are in area 0. Okay, so again, R2, they took R2 out of area 0. Now he's in his own area. He's in area 1. Well, he doesn't have it. That would be fine if he had, like, say, for instance, his gigabit 0-0 interface touching, and what I mean by touching is actually in area 0, then, gigabit 0-1 would be fine and it would work, all right? But since it's completely now taken totally out of area 0, it's not now actually touching the actual area now, all right? R3 is using the same router ID as R1, so we have 2 routers now with the router ID is 1.1.1.1.1. So that's pretty much going into the router OSPF process ID command, and then giving both routers the 1.1.1.1 router ID. Okay. All right. R4 has been configured with the hello and dead timer of 5-20 on gigabit 0-0 instead of the 10-40 used by default on R1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. On R1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right. Summary of problems that prevent OSPF neighbors on the central local area network. Okay. Finding area mismatches. To create a area mismatch, the configuration of some of the routers must be placed in the interface into the wrong area per design. As shown in this figure, R2 was configured incorrectly, placing both its interfaces into area 1 instead of area 0, showing the configuration which used the correct syntax and therefore accepted by the router, but it's the wrong number. Okay. With a mismatch error, the show IP OSPF neighbor command will not list the neighbor because it sees nothing in the OSPF neighboring table. To troubleshoot this problem, you would need to find the area configuration on which on each interface on potential neighboring routers. To do so, check the output of the show running config. So the show run config, all right. IP OSPF process ID, all right, and area command, okay. The network command in OSPF configuration mode, all right. So there's a couple different ways to correct this problem and to identify this problem, okay. Using the show IP OSPF interface brief command will probably help you narrow it down. All right, finding duplicate OSPF router IDs. Next, in the example shows R1 and R3 by trying to use both the router ID 1.1.1.1. Interestingly, both routers automatically generate a log message for the duplicate OSPF router ID problem because R1 and R3, the end of problem between R1 and 3. The end of the example shows a such message. For example, just show the IP OSPF command on both routers. You can easily list the router ID on each router. Nothing that they both use the same thing. Okay. Plus, just saying, just running the show IP OSPF command there, you'll be able to see that both routers have the same exact router ID. Okay. First, focus on the problem. The duplicate router ID, the first line in the show IP OSPF command on the 2 routers quickly show that they're using both the duplicate problem. Assuming that R1 is 1.1.1 and R3 should be 3.3.3.3, change the router ID and reset the OSPF process. To do so, router ID 3.3.3.3 OSPF subcommand and use the exec mode to clear. So there's that. Let me highlight this. There's that clear IP OSPF process command. Okay, the clear IP OSPF process command that will pretty much reset the OSPF process. All right, all over again. So again, if we were to come over here, we're in R1. All right. Let's go to configuration terminal. We'll go to interface gigabit 0-0, and we'll run the no IP OSPF priority 99. All right, we'll run that, then we'll exit, and then we'll do the clear. We're going to go back. Oh, no tabs. All right, so we'll do the clear IP OSPF process command. All right, we'll give it the yes. All right, and you're going to see we're going to drop all of our adjacencies again. And then you'll see them all start coming back up again. All right, now let's do a show IP OSPF neighbor. All right, and it doesn't look like so. That's funny. So router 2 now became the designated router. Router 4 became the backup designated router, and router 3 is now the So let's do this then. Let's totally grenade everything. Turn that back on now. Did I give it enough time? That's funny. Even though that went down, let's do that again. Maybe it hasn't spent enough time yet. And we're done. Whoop whoop! That means you're coming home early. How the heck do you still have a neighborship? When the hobby, oh, not me, you cannot call it hub. When the switch is down. There we go. Oh, so I was waiting for the dead timer to actually pass on that one. That's funny. It changed it. Yeah. It's still keeping the same. That's fine. All right. All right. That's fine. But you guys can get the idea of what I was attempting to do there. So with the clear IP OSPF process command, okay, OSPF will begin using a new router ID value until the process is restarted, either via the command or a reload. Okay. You can click. You can look. Click on the console. You can look and click on the console. Are you talking about the switch here? There is no, yeah, see, console not supported on the unmanaged switch node. No, no, no. That's what I'm saying is this is the unmanaged switch. This is the unmanaged. Yeah, yeah. You know. Yes, that's what I'm saying. This is the unmanaged switch image. That's why I was calling it what I was calling it earlier, because there is no actual, there is no way to manage it. Yeah, there is a switch image, and that's the iOS. That's the iOS VL2 here. Yeah, so that's just stating that the power is actually on. At least from my knowledge of what this is doing. That's similar to over in GNS3. I don't want to boot up GNS3 right now, but GNS3 has a similar base image as well. I've been learning on Packet Tracer. Yeah, yeah. Cisco Modeling Lab. Yep, yep, yep. Welcome to the stream. And there's nothing wrong with Cisco Packet Tracer either. Cisco Packet Tracer is a great program, an excellent program. I use Cisco Packet Tracer as well, because there are when we get over to yeah. So when we get over to wireless technology, we'll be solely using Cisco Packet Tracer when we go over wireless technology, because there really isn't a way to, and you can correct me on this too. Everything that he is using is available on AWS as a device. Yes, yes, it is. Yep, pretty much. Yep, exactly. When we get over to doing wireless technology, there really isn't a way to emulate wireless technology without actually really creating wireless technology within my own, my own production domain or whatever have you. So when we cover wireless technology and Wi-Fi and stuff like that, we'll be using Cisco Packet Tracer a lot in that when we get over to those chapters right there. So. CBT has issues that is only does iOS, but CML would carry full VMs. Actually, there is. You need to upload VM images. Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying, yeah, I guess what I'm saying though is if we were to implement that, we would actually be creating an actual it would be a real virtual wireless controller inside of our actual, it'd be real, as much as it is close to real life Cisco Modeling Lab, that would be a legit C's wireless LAN controller. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, just to even play around in, you know what I'm saying? Um, you're the man. I love you, Code. You're the man. All right. Let's get back to finishing up about what we were discussing about with OSPF here. So, finding hello and dead timers mismatches. Okay. All right. First, as a reminder for the chapters. First, as a reminder for chapters past. Okay. Hello interval timers. The per interval timer that tells a router how often to send OSPF hello messages on a interface. Yeah. All right. So yeah. All right. Virtual lab things you can do truly all technology. Yep. Yep. So dead interval timers, the per interface timer that tells the router how long to wait without having received a hello from a neighbor before believing the neighbor has failed. Okay, so let's read that one more time. Hello interval timer, the per interface timer that tells a router how often to send an OSPF hello message on an interface, and a dead interval timer, the per interface timer that tells the router how long to wait without receiving a hello from the neighbor before believing the neighbor has gone down. So the dead timer waits for the hello message. If the hello message doesn't received within that dead timer interval, all right, then the routers will believe that something went wrong, there was a failure, it went dead. Okay, all right. The hello interval is what's set to make sure that it's sending out these periodic interval these messages on a interval basis here. All right. US CPC, computer node, CML, iOS, and INOX for data center, and the third, which is AC Sims. Fourth is CBT, but is aging and out of service. Has friends all over. Does it really? Hello, packet. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next, consider the problem created on R4 with the configuration of a different hello timer and dead timer 5 and 20 respectively, and compare the default setting on R1, R2, and R3, 10 and 40 respectively. A hello and dead interval mismatch prevents R4 from becoming a neighbor with any of the other three OSPF routers. Routers list their hello and dead timer interval settings in their hello message and choose to not become a neighbor if the value does not match. As a result, none of the routers become neighbors with R4 in this case. Yes, they can talk to each other. Okay. But I guess what it's implying is they won't be in a neighborship won't be established. I guess this is at least from what this is implying here, is a neighborship won't be established if there is a mismatch on those particular settings on the hello and the dead interval timer. All right, at least that's what it's implying. So, in the example show, the easiest way to find the mismatch using the show IP OSPF interface command, both R1 and R4. This command lists the hello and dead timer for each as highlighted in the example. Now, R1 is using 10 and 40 hello and dead, whereas R4 is using 5 and 20. So yeah, so the settings have to match. Yeah. So here is the highlighted portion here with hello and dead. All right, hello being with the 10 second and the dead being with the 40 second. All right, with the on the R4 here being the hello every 5 seconds and the dead every 20 seconds. Okay, with that mismatch, the neighbor relationship will not take place. They will not complete the neighborship. Okay. All right. With that said, with that mismatch said. All right. Shutting down the OSPF process, similar to the administrative disabling and enabling in an interface, iOS also allows the OSPF version 2 routing protocol process to be disabled and enabled with the shutdown and no shutdown. Okay, so again, similar to how we would shut down an interface, it's stating that the iOS allows us to do a similar command, the same exact command actually, on the OSPF version 2 routing protocol process. Okay, so with the shutdown and no shutdown command in the router subcommand, the OSPF router is this in the router? All right, so the router subcommand respectively, when a router protocol process is shut down, the iOS does the following: brings down all neighbor relationships and clears the OSPF table, clears the link state database, clears the IP routing table of any OSPF learned routes. Same for BGP and ERGRP. Okay, so that's just something everybody should take note of. with that same command can be used for BGP and ERGRP as well, too, guys. Okay, so take note of that. Okay, at the same time, shutting down OSPF does retain some important details about OSPF in particular. Okay, iOS retains all OSPF configuration, so it doesn't per se wipe the OSPF configuration. It's just simply taking taking it down. Just like if you were to take down the interface, it doesn't per se remove the IP address from that interface. It's just simply saying it's just shutting it down. Okay. Similar case with OSPF. It's just saying, okay, I'm not going to get rid of your configuration. You just want it turned off. We'll turn it off for you. Okay. All right. OS still lists all OSPF enabled interfaces in the OSPF interface list, the show IP OSPF interface, but in the state of down. All right. So if we were to come over here, go back to R1. So it is in the router OSPF configuration. Okay, that's just what I want to see. So we're going to go over here to router OSPF process 1, because that's where we're in, and we give it the shutdown. So we're going to give it the shutdown. Okay, just again, same thing like if we would have shut down an interface. All right, we give the shutdown. Now we can see that we lost our neighbor adjacencies. So let's do the do show IP OSPF interface brief. All right, we're still showing that we have our IP OSPF interface configuration here. Okay, but our state is now in the down. Okay, so let's give it the no shut. Let's give it the no shut now, just like we were to do to an interface. All right. And there we go. We just made our adjacencies. Okay. All right. And let's do a do. Let's do a do show OSPF neighbor. All right, and now we have our neighborships back up and running. Okay, all right. So very good. All right. First, from before the shutdown, the show IP OSPF neighbor command lists 2 neighbors. After the shutdown, the same command lists no neighbors at all. Second, the show IP OSPF interface brief command does list the interface as on which OSPF is enabled on the local router owns IP address. However, it lists at the state of down, just like we just saw, which references to the local router state. But also note that the show IP OSPF command positively states that the OSPF process is shut down, while the show IP OSPF database command outputs list only a heading line with no link state advertisements. Okay. All right. Issues that allow adjacencies but prevent IP routes. Okay. Let's say that again. Issues that allow adjacency but prevent IP routes. Okay. The last 2 issues to discuss in this sections have symptoms in which the show IP OSPF neighbor command lists neighbors, but some other problems exist that prevents the eventual addition of OSPF routes to the routing table. The two issues: a mismatch MTU setting and a mismatch OSPF network type. All right, mismatch MTU setting The mismatch MTU size defines the per interface setting used by the router for the layer 3 forwarding logic defined by the largest network layer packet. Okay, the router will forward out of each interface. For instance, the IPv4 MTU size of an interface defines the maximum size in IPv4 packet that the router can forward out an interface. Routers often use a default MTU size of 1500 bytes, which with the ability to set the value as well. The IP MTU size interface subcommand defines the IPv4 MTU setting, and the IPv4 MTU size command sets the equivalent of the IPv6 packet size. Okay? All right. In an odd twist, two OSPF routers can eventually become OSPF neighbors, but list in the output of the show IP OSPF neighbor command and reach a two-way state, even if they happen to use different IPv4 MTU settings on their interfaces. However, they fail to exchange their link state databases. Eventually, after trying and failing to exchange the link state databases, the neighbors' relationships also fail. Okay, so also keep a watch on MTUs mismatch, although they will although they may be unusual and obscure. By looking at the running config and by using the show interface command, which lists the IP MTU. Okay. Mismatch OSPF network types. Early in the chapter, you read about OSPF broadcast network types, which use the DR and BDR, and the OSPF point-to-point network type, which does not. Interestingly, if you misconfigure network type settings, such as that one router uses broadcast and the other router uses point-to-point, the following occur. So here's a key topic, okay? The two routers become fully adjacent neighbors, okay? Let's say that again. The two routers will become two fully adjacent neighbors. That is, they will reach a full state, okay? They'll exchange their link state databases, okay? They do not add IP routes to the IP routing table. Okay, the reason for not adding the routes has to do with the details of the LSAs and how to use the DR and not changing the LSAs. All right, basically the two routers expect different details in the LSAs, and in the shortest path first algorithm notices those differences and cannot trust the LSAs because of those differences, okay? For instance, early in the example, the configuration showed R1 using a network type of point-to-point on its gigabit 0-0-0 interface with the expectation that R2 would also use a point-to-point on its gigabit 0-1-0 interface. And the example shows of the same result if the engineer neglected to configure R2, leaving it to the default setting of broadcast. Okay, shutting down an OSPF process and resulting in neighbor states. Okay, just showing that again. Let's just read this very last part. As you can see, both routers list the other an OSPF neighbor is in the full state. However, R1 with the network type point-to-point does not list a designated router or backup designated router in the output, while R2 does. So remember, in point-to-point, in OSPF point-to-point, there is no DR or BDR, okay? In OSPF broadcast, there is a DR and BDR, okay? So you can almost see if by running the show IP OSPF neighbor command, you'll see right away if you're having issues with this type of misconfiguration. If one router is stating you have a DR and a BDR, and the other router is stating that there is no DR and BDR. Okay? All right. The others comes from, with noticing the expected routers are not in the IP router table. All right. All right. So chapter review, review some key topics. So we discuss two OSPF network types and the key behaviors, OSPF interfaces, local roles, and neighbor counts, rules for electing an OSPF designated router, backup designated router, evidence of OSPF network types, point-to-point, Neighboring requirements for OSPF. Useful commands to discover OSPF neighboring issues. Symptoms of an OSPF network type mismatch. All right. So let's take a look at the command reference, and this is for all of us, so we can take a look. When we lab this up later on in whatever you're using, packet trace, Cisco model lab, whatever you're using, GNS3, it don't matter. All right. Here's some command reference for us. So we have the IP OSPF hello interval, the IP OSPF dead interval, passive interface, IP OSPF priority, IP OSPF network, broadcast or point to point, the shutdown, no shutdown command, and then obviously we have the show IP protocols, the show IP OSPF interval brief, interface brief, the show IP OSPF interface, and then obviously the interface itself, the show IP OSPF neighbor, which is honestly, in my opinion, one of my more favorite commands, one of my more favorite OSPF show commands that I'll be relying heavily on going forward, and the show IP OSPF and the show interface. Okay, now let's take, let me switch my camera views real quick so I can take a seat. And we'll discuss briefly on what tomorrow is going to bring for us. All right, and what next week is also going to bring to the table for us as well. Let me switch over to this one. There we go, everybody. All right. So we've reached the end. Oh, too far. All right. We've reached the end of part 6. Okay. And this is like where I like finishing a complete part on a Thursday because what it leaves us to do is tomorrow, Friday, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a big review. All right, it leaves us the entire stream to do a complete review. And I love the big review days. As much as they seem like they get a little bit, we're not covering anything new on those days. It's the fact that we need to go back and review everything that we've already learned. All right, so tomorrow, if you join me tomorrow, we will be reviewing from chapter 1 all the way to here we are now, all the way to chapter 21. All right, it will be a mammoth review. I'm talking, we're gonna cram 100 and some odd question review in on it. That way, again, we're continuing to go back to what we've already learned to ensure that we're not forgetting anything that we've already looked at. The last thing I want to do, and the last thing I want anybody who's following the stream for these purposes as well, is to kind of relapse on some of what they've learned already. All right, I feel as though by reinforcing and re-engaging on these types of questions over and over and over again, it's nailing that to our memory banks. All right, that way again we're more prepared. I'm gonna be more prepared for the actual exam itself when it comes. All right, so tomorrow we'll be doing a big huge review. We'll have Packet Tracer up or Cisco Model and Lab up. That way we can do some labbing as well too if we have any questions arrive on maybe some topics. Maybe we'll cover some STP maybe or something else. Who knows? If we get stumped on an area again, we're gonna have to go back and lab it up. That way we're comfortable again with what we've done so far. All right. But what we'll do at the end of that stream, all right, is we got a big mammoth of a one coming up, guys. And I'm talking, this is going to kick my butt, all right? We're going to be getting into finally IPv6, all right? IPv6, all right? It's going to just rack my brain up. It's going to destroy me because it's something I've spent some time and I understand it to a small point. All right, that's just me being honest, guys. it's nothing like it's not going to be hard for us to get, all right? But it's going to be something we're going to have to spend some time to cover and go over and over again, because we're going to have to figure out subnetting all over again, but we're going to have to do it with IPv6. So again, it's something that is going to take us probably a whole other week to get through and to really nail down and to continue to go over and over again. I'll pull up the subnetting the subnetting stuff that I had before with the IPv4. Actually, 90% of IPv version 6 is auto configured. And probably it is in real life. Thank heavens in real life it's auto configured. I couldn't deal with it if it wasn't. My brain would explode. It would melt out of my poor little ears. But for I guess the purposes of the exam, I guess it does touch though on some IPv6 subnetting in itself. Remember, guys, these concepts are similar. Hey, baby. These concepts are going to be similar to what we've already learned. I'm almost done. These concepts are very similar to what we've learned with IPv4, but we're adding a bigger size. All right, it's a bigger address size. Okay, all right, it's a bigger address size, guys. All right, and here's just some examples of what we're going to be looking at, guys. All right. All right, so this is what we're going to be diving into next week. All right, which is going to be good for us because it's something that we needed, and I've been waiting honestly to get to this point, to IPv6. All right, is something that for myself I have to learn. I have to learn well. So. The boss lady, she's everyone's boss in here. So I pay for a subscription. Try Power Up. I pay for a subscription off of O'Reilly Media, and that's what I'm using here to study. I have the physical books as well. I have all the physical books. I'm a psycho when it comes to all the Cisco stuff. Yeah, I hopefully I'm hoping um and maybe I can I'm hoping maybe I can get some support for anybody that's following these streams, and maybe I can get some discount codes or something like that for everybody out there if they're interested and stuff like that. That'd be something. O'Reilly, yeah. So code I have a continuous subscription to O'Reilly, a full subscription too. So I take all the live courses. I've taken a lot of courses with live courses with Kevin Wallace himself, with Weldon Odom, with Omar Santos, and many others. Yeah, I mean I love having the O'Reilly subscription, and I can honestly say having the O'Reilly subscription is what has helped me pretty much break into what I've learned so far. It has helped me with this with the learning curve, because of the access to all the information that is real information. It's not just I don't need to go on Google and Google anything. As much as Googling things are good, I go right to the source with my questions sometimes, and I'll ask the source. And usually, when you ask the source the question, you'll get the real answer back. So you guys are amazing. Let me just drop this down. Turn on me music. Boom, boom, boom. All right, and let's come over to here. Drop this down, pick this up. All right. Yeah, so I have all so if when you join tomorrow if you join tomorrow code you'll see I use all the Pearson test prep stuff and all that as well, um, which is awesome. Let's do this. Let's go to my friend um, Shirley and let's all go say hi to a good friend of mine Shirley. He's a good cat. The night begins to shine. All right, let's go say hi to my good friend Shirley real quick, guys. Guys, you have a great night. Thank you, everybody, again. Make sure you guys. Um, I would try, but tomorrow's Friday. That's fine, my good friend. Um, Make sure, guys, if you're interested in the Discord, here's the link to the Discord right there. If you want to join it up. I've made some updates to it, guys, and stuff like that. But you guys have a great night. Love every single one of you guys. I will see you guys back here tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys are all amazing. Keep studying, guys. All right.
More science. What? Joseph, how you doing, man? I'm sorry I didn't stick around your stream, but dude, I had no idea what the hell you were talking about. That was way over my head. But hey, thanks so much. Hey, Trini, I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm Surly Irby. I am a variety streamer. I here lately I've been playing The Outer Worlds and Death Stranding. I'm doing good. Doing good. I've had a great day today, and I've had a good stream so far. And I'm getting closer and closer to making an affiliate. Getting closer and closer. Maybe about, I think like 20 more follows, and I just gotta get my average viewers up a bit. But getting close to affiliate now. It's streaming a week, so I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Hey, this definitely helps. Thank you so much. The Outer Worlds, by the way, super good game and a fun game. I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you like Fallout games or sci-fi, or if you were a fan of the show Firefly during the short time that it aired. Definitely recommend checking out. Yeah, man. Thanks, Joseph. I surely appreciate it.